It's time to put the knob onto the top of the teapot. It's been a day since these were first made, the lid and the base of the teapot. So now they're leather hard and ready to do some alterations and adding attachments. The knob is an attachment, of course. What I'm doing is adding a little bit of slip, and I'll take my serrated rib and I'm scoring so that these pieces make a nice attachment. And this is a ball of the same clay body, but it's nice and soft. It's a little bit softer actually than the lid itself, and that's fine. That's going to work pretty well for what I'm needing it to do. So I've slipped and scored that, and I'm going to attach it to the top of the lid, and then I'm going to throw the knob. Okay, now all I'm doing is just pushing some clay down here. One thing that you want to consider is that this piece is going to be a little bit wetter, especially after I've done some throwing, than this lid. So I want them to dry slowly. Also, this knob will be thicker because it's a knob. It'll be thicker than this clay. So in order to prevent concern about it not being dried enough, I want to just give it a little extra time when it's drying. Now what I'm doing is actually throwing down so that the knob is able to attach well to the lid. It occurred to me that somebody may ask about how did I know this was centered, or how did I get this centered. Just by making the score lines, I knew essentially where the center of this lid was. And as you can see, it's sitting on top of the teapot base, so we know. And we know how it's going to look when it's done, too. This is another one of those situations where I may start with more clay than I really need to have. The reason for that is it's easier to remove some than to add some. I don't want to do a whole lot of working, and I don't want to work really wet. So if you're someone who is used to working very wet, you may want to practice throwing drier. Get used to the feel of how dry you can work. And remember, slip is your friend, so get a lot of slip on your fingers as opposed to a lot of water if you need more moisture. Shaping that knob, trying to make it look how I want it to look, and it does look a tad too big, a tad too tall. So I'll take, it's a small teapot, so I'll take my pin tool and I'm just going to cut some off of there. I could also have done that with a fettling knife, it doesn't matter. You'll notice I'm wetting my fingers more than I'm wetting my clay. If clay does start getting wet, I can just soak that up with a sponge. What I'm doing is squeezing and shaping and really just arranging that so that it looks like a decent knob. If it looks off, I can always make some changes. Because this clay is still pretty moist. I'm going to take my rib and clean off some of the excess slip that has gotten onto the teapot lid. And again, this is a very soft, flexible rib, Michael Sherrill rib. Decorative element on the top of the knob there. It's a little uneven. Smooth it out and try it again with my thumbnail. That's nicer. And there's that. When making teapot lids, there's one last thing that you want to think about. And really you only need to think about this with teapot lids, and that's a vent hole in the top. That's going to, a lot of people think it's to release steam. It's going to do a little bit of that, but for the most part, really what it is for is to get air pressure inside the teapot, which helps the tea to flow out through the spout. So what I'm going to do, since the lid looks like this, it's got the gallery inside and the knob on top, I need to poke my hole in a place that's not going to go through the knob and isn't going to end up in this wall either. I'm going to go in from the inside with my pin tool, and I'm going to eyeball where it comes out on the outside. Make a little hole. I start with the pin tool because it's a lot easier to fix it if I do end up in a bad spot with that. And then to make the hole a little bit larger, because that's too small, it's going to fill in with glaze in no time, I actually use the back of this brush, which I believe I got in the hardware store in the plumbing department. But it's got a hollow handle and it's smaller than the tool that I use to make openings in pieces like colanders. So it's still going to drill the same hole. It's just going to be smaller. For a colander, I drill about a 1/4 inch hole. So there that is. Excuse me. It's a little bit rough, and that's okay because I'll be able to clean that up. I can clean a little bit of it up right now, and I'll clean it up further when it's green, when it's bone dry, just by doing a little bit of light sanding with a wet scrubby. So that's the lid. Another thing that people will do is put a tab on this. Just a little piece of clay right on the outside, sort of like that, only a lot neater. And the reason for doing that is so that you have something to grab a hold of the teapot body when you're pouring, and that way the lid is less likely to fall out. The problem is, it seems like a lot of people don't expect that to be there, so when they're taking off the lid to look inside the pot, they normally hit that pretty hard on the edge. So if you're going to remember that it's there, by all means go ahead and put the tab on. And if you do that, if you put the tab directly across from that hole, you'll know where that is, and you'll know how to take that lid off the pot without smacking that tab on the teapot body and possibly breaking it off.